I'm worried and I'm seeing that less company is looking for junior engineers and they are more open to using AI. So I would just see how those junior engineers become more effective and use AI more effectively.
Welcome back to Tech Teams Today. Today's guest is Kazuki Nishiura, the CTO of Sardine.ai, a fast-growing fraud, compliance, and payments platform serving fintechs, banks, and marketplaces. Before Sardine, Kazuki helped scale Bolt 10x during a hypergrowth phase, contributed to the Google Pay team, and got his start as a founding engineer in Japan. He's seen it all: early stage chaos, big tech scale, and now the AI era of fintech. In this episode, we'll talk about fraud detection, AI-powered decision systems, hiring in a world where LLMs ace lead code, and how Kazuki thinks about leading technical teams through complexity and hypergrowth. Kazuki, welcome to the show.
Thank you much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
All right, so let's get right into it. We like to start off the show by having guests sort of tell us how they got into tech and how they got into leadership. Could you maybe sort of walk us through your journey starting out in tech?
Yeah, so the reason I started programming is I want to build a video game. So I'll be a game programmer because why not, right? But I think the aha moment for me was that when I was in college, I built Android app for myself and I just put on top Play Store. And a few months later, I see it's early days of Play Store. So I see tens of thousands of people downloading it. And I'm like, oh my God, one student can have this big impact. So I think that's why I'm excited with technology. And that's probably the reason why I joined Google as well, because Google, as you know, changes how billions of people access information. Now, on the leadership, I think soon after I started my career, I realized I care a lot about different things. I care about coding, but I also care about product. I care about sales. I care about marketing. And I feel like I'm more effective and more happy in leadership because I can influence more into those things. Now, leadership can be management or non-management. So I kind of explore both. At board, I was a manager at one point. I became an IC later. When I joined Sardine, I wasn't sure if I want to be manager or not. So I joined as an IC. But then as company grow, I became a CTO. And I think I'm now happy because I can influence many different things and I can kind of decide what my scope is.
Yeah, it's interesting, like the shift going back between leadership roles to IC roles, and depending on the environment, you might enjoy being an IC more than you might enjoy leadership, and vice versa, right?
Yeah, I mean, some people call it a pendulum, right? I think knowing both can make you a better rounded person in a way.
Exactly. So one question, we usually ask this later in episodes, but if you could go back in time and give yourself advice earlier in your career, what would it be?
I think earlier in my career, I wanted to grow first and I wanted to, promote faster. But looking back my career, I did many different things. I go to big company, small company. I did mobile, front end. And again, I feel like that make me more rounded and it shapes who I am today. So I feel like I want to say that don't focus on the immediate growth. You just focus on the higher impact and what make you happy. And then, career is very long. So you kind of have to learn and that shape you who you are. So that's, I guess, one advice. Another advice would be invest in the people because, again, you have very long career. You probably work with your colleague 10 years future. And I still have a friend from both days where I can exchange information, I can truly trust and believe. I think investing in those people is really important.
Yeah, that one comes up a lot because in such a technical industry, people tend to get caught up in the technology less than the people side. And you don't realize someone that you might start off with as an intern, you might end up working with them on an executive team in 10 years, or working at different companies that are working together. I think most people would relate to that. Going into Sardine a little bit, what's the biggest technical challenge that Sardine is solving today?
Yeah, so as a recap, Sardine is a risk platform with a fraud prevention and compliance for banks and fintechs, right? And then we are a data machine learning company. So we do the data collection and the data processing. On the data collection side, we have proprietary technology on device intelligence. That is, what is the device? Is it VPN? Is it a rooted? Is it a fake device? Is it a bot, etc.? And on the behavior, we check how you type, how you swipe, how you hold your phone, how you navigate, and so on and so forth. And those information give you the very high precision data that you can predict for fraud. And the other thing is, once you capture many data And as you can imagine, banking have tons of data. You have to use it. So we also build a platform that can process thousands of signals in real time and predict riskiness of the user or transaction. So those are the problems we are solving today.
Yeah, and especially in fintech, it's such a highly regulated industry that must play a really big factor in everything. It's a very complex industry, right? Like you're dealing with financial institutions, you're dealing with fraud, compliance, payments, and across different industries like banking, fintech, e-commerce. How do you sort of like balance the complexity across such a wide surface area?
Yeah, we often joke one product of Sardine can be its own company because we do so many different things across different industry, different companies. But our idea from day one is we wanted to build a platform because what we have seen in the past, by the way, our founder is also from operational side. They are from Revolut, PayPal, and Uber. And what we have seen in the past is there's an information silo because fraud team and compliance team use different tooling, or maybe KYC team and onboarding team have different tooling. So we wanted to organize information in one place, and we want to build a platform that is flexible so that you can customize for your use case. If you have compliance officer, you have a certain operation. You have a fraud team, you have a different operation. So we build platform such that it's easy to customizable and very flexible. We often say it's one API because we have one API that's very flexible and can be used for many different use cases. And again, the same dashboard, but that can be customizable to the different use cases.
I know this is sort of an open-ended and probably a really long answer to this question, but what role does AI play in Sardine? So it's Sardine.ai, right?
Yes. So it's front and center. Yeah. So I mean, we do AI in everywhere, right? So when you attempt transaction, we check a lot of different things. For instance, is your name real name or someone typing some random name, or is just transaction anomalous, or is this IP address, or is this access VPN? All of those are done by individual model. So we have model that compute each feature. And on top of that, we have a top level model that predict how risky you are, right? And those are all traditional machine learning models because it has to happen in a few minutes, 100 milliseconds. And then after transaction happens, we have another more like a Gen AI component that can help you review transactions. Especially on the compliance front, those reviews are taking a lot of time. Fun fact here is compliance officer is one of the fast growing jobs in the US because we have so many fintech, so many banking. Now you have to still review it because the compliance regulation says you have to review it. But there are a lot of people, spending kind of repetitive tasks doing over and over. And we think using AI, we can make it more efficient. So for instance, we have this sanction agent that when you hit sanction, check, you have to review, is this the same person? Is this the actual individual that's being sanctioned? A lot of repetitive tasks. Our AI agent can summarize information, provide some guidance. It can do some actions like doing OCR, and it can make compliance officer much, much more efficient.
Yeah, so it's like it really helps the human in the loop component, right?
Yeah,
of the
it can be a
compliance
copilot
officer.
of the officer, yeah.
Right, exactly. So moving over to sort of like AI native leadership, you've talked about the limitations, and you're not the only one, but I've heard this a lot. Sort of the limitations of lead code style interviews, particularly in the AI era. How are you rethinking hiring and technical assessments?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and I actually wrote a blog about that as well. The question is, when Gen AI can solve lead code question in 1 second, what's the point of asking that question, right? So we kind of reshaped the question. Today, we allow candidates to bring their own laptop, AI tool. In fact, we ask candidates to bring their own setup, so your computer, your IDE, your favorite AI agent. And we start from simple setup, let's say some simple API server, and ask them, extend this API, adding this parameter, and we see how they use AI. Using AI is guaranteed, right? Today, how can you work without using AI? But by using AI, how do you use it? Yeah, like how do you make it more efficient? And how do you communicate? How do you define specs? So we try to be mimicking the real world environment and see how you interact with AI.
It's actually a really good strategy. What better way to interview someone to see, well, what is your favorite IDE? What's your favorite model? All right, now solve all these problems using the things you'll probably end up using, right?
Yeah, I think that it's often kind of correlating, like those engineers who care about latest technology also knows about good thing about AI. So you can kind of see how this person up to date with the trend as well.
Yeah. So another question, this is a tough one. So what do you consider a high performing engineer on your team today versus sort of how that's changed over the past few years?
It's interesting because Sardine has grown a lot in the past few years. So the type of character who can, have an impact has slightly changed. But I think as an early stage startup, you anyways want to have a product-minded full stack engineer, who can own the things end to end. So I don't think that changes much. And with AI, those people can now act as a tech lead, right? Because AI can do more boring tasks, and then those people can own the product end to end. So again, yeah, product-minded full stack engineer who can focus on impact happens to be a good high-performing engineer.
Yeah. I'm curious what your definition of a full stack engineer is in 2025, because it was very different, at least in my opinion, 5 years ago, maybe 10, I mean, let alone 10 years ago. It
Yeah,
was just,
that's a good
yeah.
question. In fact, I was able to do front end, infra, back end, all with AI. So I guess you need to know the kind of the high level details. But yeah, as long as AI can augment you the rest, you don't have to have a deep knowledge. You just need to know how to ask good question and good prompt to the AI.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great answer. If you don't know the fundamentals, AI is only going to take you so far as a co-pilot. So going over to like scaling teams and culture. So at Bolt, you help scale the team 10x. That's pretty amazing. Congrats. What were some of the key lessons from Bolt that you carried into Sardine?
Yeah, first thing came to my mind is never compromise on the quality. I don't say all did that, but it's very, very hard, right? Everyone says that don't compromise. You bring the B people, they're gonna bring the C people. But when company is growing very, very fast and you always have more work than people, it's very tempting to hire, people who are not meeting bar. But once you relax the condition, it just go downfall. So it's very, very important to keep the bar high, both on technical front and cultural front, right? Because those early people establish the company culture. The other thing is when company is first growing, your role changes, right? So maybe early days it's encouraged to write code before documentation, but if you have 100 people, you might have to write better documentation first. So the understanding the dynamics and understanding that what is high impact work that you can do within the current organization is also important.
Yeah, when you're growing so fast, you start off as a player, then you're a player coach,
Mhm,
and then it's picking what you're going to work on, right?
mhm.
So one day you're writing code, one day you're working on infrastructure, one day you're working on mobile, then desktop, then back end, then front end. But then as you scale, now you're managing the people that are doing those things. And, you need to have documentation really well built out, or else no, it's going to be very difficult to have that continuity from a technology standpoint, right?
Yeah, it will limit your scaling.
So you talked about quality, like the most important thing, like no matter how fast you're scaling, how fast you're growing, maintaining quality. I'm curious, how do you maintain quality and team health when you're scaling that fast?
So on the code quality, I think there anyways will be a tech debt, but I think it's important to be cognizant of those tech debts, right? Is it an intentional tech debt or unintentional tech debt? And some of the tech debt can be avoided, or as long as you're intentional and you take some debt for the future, I think it's fine. So you need to make sure that you're evaluating all different trade-off and making an intentional decision. Now, on the team health, again, I think hiring is a key. You have to hire good people that elevate your culture. And yeah, that's probably the most important thing.
Yeah, we had a previous guest say tech debt is like swiping the credit card of your team's future productivity. I always thought that was a pretty good analogy. So, last question, sort of on the team and culture side. What's your approach to distributed teams, especially given Sardine's remote setup?
Yeah, I think for us, what makes it easier is we are fully remote. So I think it's easier than hybrid. And other thing I want to mention is we are fully distributed, but not fully asynchronous. So some company like GitLab is fully asynchronous and they're doing good. But for us, we realize that we still want to have this synchronous component. We want to hop on a call to discuss things. We want to have some like organized meetings. So that's one thing I want to highlight. But now on the remote settings, I think what's important is trust and autonomy. Right? As long as you are able to trust each other, you don't have to monitor what they're doing because they're doing it. And then as long as they're autonomous, they can do whatever they want. So you're again hiring top talent so you can trust and give them autonomy so they can achieve a lot of different things without blocking each other. As long as those two things are guaranteed, we can have an efficient distributed team.
Yeah. Trust and autonomy are key, and I feel like that's one of the patterns I've heard the most from engineering leaders, particularly in the remote era. So moving on to sort of like technical foundations and career path. So you've worked at startups that obviously scaled quite a bit, but you've also worked at big tech companies like Google. What through line sort of connects those roles for you that you've sort of seen, regardless of whether you're at a startup or a big tech company?
Yeah, to me, I always wanted to maximize my impact. So again, the reason I joined Google is I want to have bigger impact. And I was fortunate enough to work on the product that is used by hundreds of millions of people. That's exciting. But then at some point I'm realizing, okay, I'm having this big impact, but I'm one of these 50,000 engineers or whatever, right? So I wanted to go to a smaller company. I joined board as one of the 5 engineers, so I can decide, what I build, how I build, and some of the feature I built is still, core of the company's business. And I think Sardine have some good mix because I still have a lot of impact, but then Sardine is growing, so I can have larger impact. It's used by, Fortune 100 companies, big banks, and so on and so forth. So that, impact is where I'm maximizing for.
Yeah, and that's always a thing, I think, for engineers, looking at different companies. Should I join a startup or should I join a big tech company? You want to be a small fish in a big pond, or do you want to be a big fish in a small pond? And at different points in your career, you might be different answers, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, part of your technical background, so obviously very well-rounded, mobile, back-end, infra, most influences how you lead today.
I think everything helps, to be honest. Knowing everything is definitely good. But I think doing mobile at Google helped because I kind of learned how to do the large scale operation. And obviously at Google, you cannot ship every day. Especially mobile, you have to wait for a few months to the app to be promoted. So I learned how to take performance and quality seriously. And I learned how to build in careful manner. So that was, I guess, a big learning for me.
Yeah, because the bar is super high. It's not like you're building something that, a few dozen people or a few hundred people are going to use. It's going to be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, right?
Yep.
And this one's interesting. So, I was at a panel that we had a live version of the podcast a couple months ago in San Francisco. And this topic came up of sort of where are the senior engineers of the future going to come from when all the junior engineers today are sort of growing up with or starting their careers with AI tools like Cursor and Windsurf and Copilot. Are you worried that junior devs are sort of skipping out on a lot of the foundational knowledge and sort of the blood, sweat, and tears that people who like us started coding when there were no Copilots?
Yeah, I mean, I'm worried, and I'm seeing that less company is looking for junior engineers, right? Because the AI can do their job. But on the other hand, I'm kind of wondering how does those junior engineers, because they are more AI native in a way, and they are more open to using AI. So I would just to see how those junior engineers become more effective, and maybe they can be more effective because they can use AI more effectively.
Yeah, I'm curious, like from a personal standpoint, like I have my preferences. Like I'm curious, what's your favorite AI-based IDE?
I use Cursor and I use Golang via IntelliJ. I kind of choose based on the tasks at hand. So if I'm type of vibe coding, I just use Cursor. But then when I'm serious coding, I still use Golang with assistance of AI.
Interesting. I'm in the same boat as you then. So just sort of asking a few questions about the future. So what do you think is next for Sardine's engineering org in the next 6 to 12 months? With the rapid rate of technological change, how do you see that impacting your org in the next year, roughly?
We are growing up, meaning we have now enterprise clients. We now have clients across the globe. So going enterprise, going international, being more stable is a big shift for us. It's a learning moment for us. We are, as we can discuss, we can ship every day and fix a bug tomorrow. Was maybe 3 years ago, right? Now we have to be more careful about deployment. We have to have a proper process. So that's kind of the one big theme growing up as an organization and support even more different use cases. And the other thing is obviously AI. Now, how can we use AI more to make compliance officer and fraud operation people more efficient is another thing we are still trying to improve.
And if you could sort of like wave a magic wand and solve one technical bottleneck instantly at Sardine, what would it be?
That's a very interesting question. I think we want to build I wish there's a database of the good users and bad users. So let's say today one bad guy committed fraud on one bank, and tomorrow the same person goes to another fintech. Today there's no way to know because there's no information sharing. So many people try to build this global database of good user, bad user consortium database. Sardine also have an independent consortium called Sonar, and we're trying to building it. It's very, very hard to do, as you can imagine, because you have to involve many different stakeholders. But I think if you can do it, there will be a very, very big impact on society.
Interesting. So moving on to the last question. How do you stay sharp and curious in a fast-moving space like fraud and fintech? And not just that, but the pace of technological advancement right now.
Following X, following LinkedIn. No, I think talking to people is important. I have a peer group of leaders and engineers that I can ask questions. And then more importantly, talking to customers, because our customers tends to be industry leading fintechs. So by talking to customer, learning about the latest trend of fraud, latest trend of compliance, I can really learn everything, like something new every day.
And also, even as a CTO, you're still coding. Obviously, you're using Cursor, so you understand how this technology actually works.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, I think that getting your hands dirty and using it gives you a very good perspective of how those things works. Yeah.
Well, Kazuki, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thanks for sharing and being open about real challenges and real wins at the intersection of pretty exciting field, fintech, fraud, AI. For the audience, if you're listening, you want to learn more about Sardine.ai or learn more about what they're doing, we'll include the link in the show notes. And as always, if you like this episode, don't forget to follow Tech Teams Today on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.